One of my subs suggested I look at this channel, Not So Erudite, and this young lady and this panel discuss incels. And of course, they come off as very misandric. And I'm going to debunk what they have to say. It's a very long video, so I'm only going to include the opening statements and what to do about incels, right? You're going to see the misandry. If they use the word creep or misogynist, you know they're anti-male. Now, before we get into that, though, I want to point out that incel simply means man who doesn't know his own place. Men in relationships and married men get called incels. Here's a perfect example. This Night Watch channel, this is Shadversity. He's married and he gets called incel.
You're overreacting.
It's
just a movie.
So funny the amount of people have tried to call me incels, where in the review, my wife is reviewing it with me. They're trying to say, oh, look at this incel idiot. It's like hilarious. And it also shows how much of...
There you go. You don't need to see the whole thing. He reviewed the Barbie movie, which is feminist trash, and he said so, and some guy called him an incel. He's a married man. So incel obviously doesn't mean not able to get laid, okay? Or not having validation from women. He's a married man. He got the fabled girl, right? Okay. So now that you know that incel just means man who doesn't know his place, let's start this up. And we're going to see all this, this empathy these people have for them.
Okay, so is there a rise in incels? And if so, what is causing it? How do we fix this? Is it even a problem? Should incels be considered a marginalized group? Why or why not? What, if anything, does society owe to incels? Should women do more to help them?
For one thing, all the men on this panel are incels. If they speak up for their issues as a man, they'll be called incel. So there is no difference. There's no non-incel man. All you guys talking, you're incels.
Let's get into it, and we will start off with the first person I thought.
Oh, by the way, if I was talking about incels or had a panel, I would invite any women, because women can't be incels, and frankly, they're the cause of it, right?
Of when I thought of incels, Chud Logic, please.
Obviously, understandable. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think that there's definitely, a lot of empathy and sympathy that should be thrown these people's way.
He says that, but this panel will not show them any. Okay.
I think because sometimes it's fellas and there's a perception it's white fellas particularly, there is a lack of empathy and sympathy, despite some of the issues being things lefties ought to be very sympathetic about.
This guy fell into the racist trap. This has nothing to do with race. That black man here, he is just as much as incel as the white guys.
Lots of race issues, there's lots of ableism issues that exist when it comes to incels.
There's no ableism or race issues involved at all.
There's a lot of societal-led issues, a lot of structural issues that create these problems.
This is nonsense. The only thing that makes men incels is that women discard them. This is a very simple issue, everyone. Women aren't interested in men, and if they were, there wouldn't be incels. So the only reason they're making the issue more complex is they want to avoid the truth. They want to avoid the simple truth, so they make it more complex.
I think that there's an element as well of feeling like because men share an identity with an oppressor class, with the patriarchy and whatever. Okay, so this guy's a misandrist already. There is no patriarchy. Dude, if there was a patriarchy, there would be incels, would there? If there was a patriarchy where men work together to keep women down, they would force women to get together with men, wouldn't they? See? So this guy's a misandrist. That analysis also means that there's less sympathy further. Yeah, I mean, I think that we can be reasonable and we can take issue with maybe some of the rhetoric and some of the memes that come out of these communities, but we can also recognize that there is a genuine concern fundamentally, at the...
They never mention the rhetoric. that come out of these communities, right? You'll notice when you listen to this, there'll be no specifics, right?
At the core of that we ought to be considerate of. In terms of like, should women do more? I don't think women need to do more in and of themselves. I just think that people generally, broadly, and society should be more receptive and understanding of the issues these people face, and that's it.
I agree to one degree, on one aspect. Women should actually do less. They should stop attacking men, gaslighting men, and trying to strip us of our rights. If these women were honest with men and said, well, I'm not really interested in you as a person. I'm not really interested in you as a man. Then men would stop trying, right? Or at least they would get the honest, right? But this panel will gaslight the hell out of men. So, I mean, this is what you have to do. Stop gaslighting. Stop lying. Be honest. You know, that would be a start. And stop trying to strip us of our rights.
Is it really?
Okay, well, we'll get into what that means, what it means for them to be more understanding of what actions, if any, should be taken. But we will get through the rest of the guests. Erudite, please.
Yeah, it's probably unsurprising for anyone who's watched my content that I do believe that incels are absolutely part of like a marginalized and high-risk group. Do we need more interventions for them? I think self-evidently. I don't think any group that has the levels of mental illness and neurodivergence as this group does would in any other world be excluded from services. Do they need special services? Probably only services that are tailored, again, to their mental health needs specifically, which there are lots of those services. We might just need to transition them a little bit to.
Notice she said nothing here. There's no specifics. These guys' issue is that women discard them. So what is mental health issue? How is mental health care going to fix that? Are they going to force women to date them or make out with them? This whole panel, it says nothing the whole time, by the way, right?
To reach incels, especially at home and online. Is it on women? No, I think like it's really simple on like, especially these gendered issues, to just want to blame the other group. But I think society is just way more complex than that. And there are multiple factors that play into this.
No, this is bullshit. Women discard men because they're not interested in them. Right? Women are to blame. Simple as fact. No, I don't agree that women should be forced to do anything with men. But she's got to be honest and say that women are the source. And this, again, this isn't complex. This is a very simple issue. Women don't like men. And men don't like men. That's where the loneliness comes from. Right? So, I mean, they're trying to make it complex because they don't want to deal with the truth.
And I think like laying this at the feet of like women would be like it would be the same level of factorial analysis as like saying like the wage gap is just a gender issue as well. It's just like a single.
See, she's using the wage gap unironically. So she's a misandrist. This guy used patriarchy doesn't exist. The wage gap is an earnings gap. It's been debunked. Women just don't have to work for a living like men do. That's it. So it's a gendered issue. And she just told a bold-faced lie. So this woman is against the truth. She's gaslighting men. She is a misandrist.
Single factor to predict things when it's multiple things that are creating incels.
And again, it's not multiple. Women don't like men. That's where it all comes from. Right?
Okay, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. We'll get into it in the open. Next up, we have Portland is Burning.
Hey, thank you for having me, Wick. Kevin, Chud, nice to make your acquaintances for the first time. The rest of you, nice to see you again. I do believe that I'm on the same side of this argument as Chud and Erudite insofar as Incels do seem to be a marginalized and high-risk group. I think that the two main culprits for the situation are the public school system and the healthcare infrastructure in the United States in particular. The obvious factors contributing to their condition and their inability to find romantic companionship or any level of intimate companionship seem to start much earlier than their identification with the incel label. And I think we need to address the systemic reasons that they fall into these very toxic traps that tend to limit their ability to engage with the rest of the world in a healthy, productive way.
This is nonsense. See, this guy's a misandrist. He talks about a rabbit hole as if these guys were wandering around and they slipped into this trap. It's not a trap. They're shoved into this hole by society. They interact with society fine. Society just doesn't like them. When these young guys, of course, before they connect with incels, they're rejected by the opposite sex harshly, right? And they find out the hard way. And they find out that there's no chance for them. Because these women don't choose men because they like men. They choose them for their status. Period. We all know that by now. So this guy suggests that these guys, it's on that. This is victim blaming, everyone. This is victim blaming by a guy who should know better, who does know better. All these guys, their personal experience, I know that they get rejected. So they know better. So this gaslighting is misandric.
Thanks for having me again.
Oh, thanks for being here. And next up, we have Prime Kai.
Hello, all. Nice to see you. But I'm gonna have to pause before I get started with my intro. I just gotta say that I'm freaking out that I'm seeing Chet Logic's face.
Okay, I don't care about that. Get past that.
Ridiculous, and I think
I gotta back that up here.
Brother of my man Wick here, I was completely and totally vindicated. I'm just very happy to actually get to see you. So shout out to you, Chud. Okay. So also, Chud has terrible ideas. So I think that this idea that incels are a marginalized group is plainly ridiculous. And
is that so, dude? Can I ask everyone watching this? Do they have any incels on their panel to give this inside of incels? So they're going to do this panel over incels. They never invited one incel. So they did marginalize them, didn't they? So this guy's full of shit.
And I think is an insult to the term, right? The very serious term of marginalized groups. To add them to that is... wow, just really embarrassing. And what I would expect from white people. All right, so...
what I expect from white people? Wow, this guy isn't racist, is he? Of course, he gives the look on this guy's face, right? And just the woman is stunned. Oh my God. She doesn't feel anything. She must be a deep thinker. So she's well named, not so erudite. Oh my God. Yeah. Invite a racist to your panel, right? So, hey, this guy really showed empathy for these guys here. So you think he's going to show empathy for these incels here, the other guys? Again, all these guys are incels, boys. Let me just remind you that married men are considered incels. So these guys are incel. They're talking about these other guys like they're different from them. The only difference is that these guys built up enough status, they probably could bribe a woman into their life. But if these guys ever lose their jobs, become homeless, they become incels. So it really doesn't have anything to do with you as a person not coming up to par, right?
I think that uh, that this group of individuals, certainly feels oppressed, and
They don't feel oppressed, they are. All these guys in the panel here have fewer rights than the women in the panel. That's a fact.
deserves empathy.
Matter
Right?
of fact, I'll bring it up. These women, at least if they live in my country, can abandon their children. They can put them up for adoption if they don't want to bother. And they can make these guys pay child support. There you go. These men have fewer rights than these women, right? So I'm just letting you know that.
Right? They're going through an issue, and they deserve empathy and our understanding.
So this guy, you see the gaslighting these guys go through? These guys deserve understanding and empathy, but it's laughable that they're part of a marginalized group. And it sounds like white boy speak, according to this guy.
But anything beyond that, absolutely not. And I'll elaborate later on. Thanks so much.
Well, okay. We'll see how that goes.
Oh, by the way, they won't elaborate. This guy won't elaborate on what he means. They don't deserve anything else. What is anything else? What is he talking about?
Next up, we have Stabby, please.
I was going to do something else with that definition of marginalized, but now I have to be spicier because Prime Case just comes right out with that. Is there a rise in incels, and if so, what is causing it? No, there is not a rise in incels. Absolutely not. I am so tired of this pressure we're getting from society to see that this is a new problem we all have to run and solve right now, especially considering what incels are saying will fix their problem. There's not a rise in being an incel. There is a rise in the visibility of it because of the internet, but this used to be true. In the ancient world, it used
Now, she's only partially right. We are becoming more aware of it, and men have always been discarded. But there has been an uptake. It has increased. Since the nuclear age, the divorce rates flew through the roof after the Second World War. Once women could get clean, easy jobs to look after themselves, they started ditching their husbands, right? They stopped getting married as much, and they started divorcing them. Women cling to men when they need to siphon from men directly, but in the new age, they could do it indirectly. Society is still moved by men, right? But women do not have to be married to a man. She doesn't have to be partnered with a man to gain the advantages. So that's what's going on. This is the truth of it. And the truth they'll always leave out. I suspect they're not even aware.
to be more savage. I'll get to that if people push too far. What is the definition we're using for are they a marginalized group? If you want the Oxford definition, then yes, they are peripheral. Now, they're peripheral by choice. They've chosen to.
This is a lie. They are not peripheral by choice. They've been deselected. When she says choice, what she's really, she's victim blaming. She's saying, in her mind, a man, even when he's rejected all the time, should always keep trying. Right? Well, that's what she means. But some guys, they get smart and realize the abuse is killing me. This woman speaking does not suffer rejection. This woman either. When they come onto a man, they're going to get positive feedback. They don't suffer rejection. So this is misandry, okay?
Be peripheral, usually with the demand that sex is a part of a healthy person, which is true. It is true that a healthy sex life leads to a mentally healthy person.
Okay, so she's admitting that, okay? So if women discard men, which they are, and it's damaging men's health, they can be blamed. Now, you can't force women to date men. But this woman here, up here, you think if I, or when I, not if, but when I say to men, Stop chasing the opposite sex. It's time to find something else to do with your life. Will she be happy with that? No, because these women want men to perpetually chase. Perpetually chase.
As one of the factors that helps us be mentally healthy. But they're pushing themselves into that. Are they oppressed? Absolutely not. They are not oppressed by any group that's trying to oppress them.
This is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Female teachers downgrade boys. Do you understand that? Young men are oppressed all the time. They have quotas for work for women. The Me Too attacks men. It goes on and on. Men are an oppressed group. She's lying. Okay.
You could make that claim of the ancient world with harems, sultans, nobility who could get as many women as they wanted, but you can't make that argument now.
This is nonsense too. She is a major gaslighter. Rock stars have had women throw themselves at them constantly, and sports stars. Nothing has changed.
For what do we do, if anything, and what do we owe incels? I think that every human being on earth owes incels exactly what we owe the rest of humanity. Empathy, trying to help them. We owe them accessible mental health care. We owe them being taught and learning, especially, guys, if you are in healthcare right now, I am begging you.
Healthcare is cancer to man. And guys who've experienced know it. And again, how is healthcare going to get these men the girl? They can't get the girl not because they're mentally ill, but the women aren't interested. Healthcare cannot change that. These two women will choose man for his status, just like every other woman, right? But I bet if I said, okay, rather than healthcare, just tell these guys to get high-paying jobs to bribe women, they would call me a misogynist, right?
Please take some of what you've learned. Don't advise or give therapy to a person, but the way your therapist talked to you to tell you, yes, this is an insurmountable task. This is a huge amount of work, but here's how you're going to do it, and here's how you're worth all of this effort. Please talk to people that way, especially if you're in therapy and you've seen how you've been treated by therapists.
Notice she doesn't say what. This is an insurmountable, there's lots of work, but she doesn't mention the hows, does she? Notice when these guys talk, they'll never talk about specifics. They'll never say, okay, this is how it's done, right? They say go to therapy so they don't have to talk about the issue. This is a non-debate. This is a non-talk. There's no discussion here.
Try to not be toxically positive, but say, yes, rejection is normal. I mean, you don't have to tell them to get over it, but oh my God, they get rejected once. The rest of humanity gets rejected a dozen times and we handle it, but the incels...
See, this is complete lie. Who is she to say these guys got rejected once and gave up? Do you see what she's trying to do? She's trying to say these men are just, these guys who take the incel label are sub-men who just didn't even try. First of all, we don't take rejection. You, lady, or a woman, you don't get rejection. You do the rejecting. So shut up. That's why I wouldn't have a woman on the panel at all. Keep your mouth shut. Secondly, these guys are rejected far more than the average guy on this panel. That's why the average guy on this panel here is not an incel, because they gained enough status. They probably were able to bribe a woman into their life, right? They all have channels, right? They're all on the internet. They probably built up enough status to bribe a woman. But again, if I didn't mention already, these guys lose their jobs, become homeless. They're incels. They can't get the girl, right? So, and their mental health deteriorates.
lose their minds. So try to use some of those speech that therapists use if you're in therapy yourself. And should women do more to help them? No. Well, like what? Putting us out as a separate group. We already have a burden, and our
You ladies have no burden whatsoever. You live your lives on easy mode. If you did, there would be femcells. There aren't. This is nonsense. Women are accepted by society 100%. If you watch any of my videos or any of the videos from the Pro Male Collective, it shows this time and time again, right? You have to be truly mentally ill as a woman not to be a part of a social circle. You are accepted by society. People don't care if you work for a living. It's stress-free being a woman. If they suffer stress, it's because they're putting it on themselves.
Our job was to make sure that we weren't making children with the ones that were going to be violent towards those children, or the ones that were going.
Okay, this is totally disgusting. She's calling incels violence. Now, I'll include a video from Shield for Men debunking that horseshit, right? These two women are attracted to violent men. Women are attracted to violent men. Violent thugs get the girls. That's a fact that men have noticed time and time again. So she's smearing these men as violent to then be able to strip them of further rights, right? If you're calling someone violent as a group, that's a dog whistle to strip their rights away. What I say earlier, Erudite, stop stripping us of our rights. And you'll notice none of these guys interrupt her and say, no, that's not true. And there's no incels on this panel to fight back, are there? Because these people marginalize them. They said, we don't want their voices heard.
To, harm us in some way. That's already an evolutionary pressure. Women should not be doing something extra.
No, you're not doing extra. Women don't do shit, first of all. But most of all, beware of biological reductionism. If you could ask this man about racism, he wouldn't go on about the evolutionary sources of racism. He'd just say racism is bad and we have to stop it, right? Biological reductionism is there to excuse society's behavior towards men, the misandric behavior. And that's what these misandrists are doing now.
Beyond what society itself should be doing for every person.
Okay. Also, we're getting some clicking or something. I'm not sure what that's about or who that's from. But next up, last but not least, first-time guest on my show. Hopefully not last time, but we'll see how it goes. Kevin Logan, please.
Yes, hello there. I'm Kevin Logan. You can follow me at...
Oh, it's Kevin Logan. I didn't... This guy is complete feminist scumbag, right? So these people are inviting a feminist scumbag on a panel about incels, right? Yeah, they're not biased at all, are they?
KF Logan 1875 on Twitch. Click. Yeah, I think there are fundamentally two different groups that need to be talked about separately in a sense within this conversation. There are people who are literally involuntary celibate, i.e. can't get laid for whatever reason, and there are a myriad of different things. Those people I have a lot of sympathy for. I'm not going to shit talk them. We've got plenty of example. I mean, me and Chud are both ugly white British bastards. Not getting laid is pretty straightforward. So that's one thing.
I mean, speak for yourself, mate. Jesus.
Oh,
yeah. Speak for yourself. No, he can speak for you because you aren't pretty, dude. So own it.
right, scuffed Jeremy Corbyn. Calm down, mate.
By the way, how are you going to know which guy's which? He's not talking about these incels. He's talking about the other incels, right?
Anyway, do you have but then you have incels, the kind of incel trademark, if you will, who are really, frankly, the kind of face of inceldom, I suppose, who are often misogynistic, violent, nasty creeps who are...
Okay, so I use the word creep and misogynist. There you go. Those are N-words for men. So this is a misogynistic cretin. And these people who want to show empathy and kindness to these incels invite him on purposely to this panel.
I don't feel fucking sympathy for, and I have a great deal of antipathy toward. And I think the mixing up of those two groups is quite dangerous, and I think the nasty element of the incels hides behind this natural tendency for humans to feel sympathy for actual involuntary celibates. And that, in some sense, is even sicker than just the hatred in of itself, in that they weaponizing other people's issues for their own political, social clout.
Really? So there's a group of men who call themselves incels to gain political clout? How would that work exactly, Logan? Like, where's the political clout in incels, right? So this guy's full of shit.
As to whether they're a marginalized group, that's fucking ridiculous. That isn't a fucking thing. They can be part of marginalized groups. I think neurodivergence has been mentioned a couple of times. Yeah.
Men do not have any unity with or solidarity with one another as a sex. They always have to choose another mask, another form of identity, right? So like for this guy, we'll say he's a black man. He can be a marginalized group as a black man, but not as a man, even though that is completely untrue and has been proven untrue.
There are probably a lot of them that are neurodivergent, but they're potentially ostracized because of that neurodivergence. It's not the fact that they can't get their fucking dick wet. That's not the fucking point, is it?
Well, what are you going on about? Women deselect neurodivergent men, so they can't get their dick wet. Yeah. I mean, as a reminder, guys, none of this is neither here nor there, because again, married men who do get their dick wet are called incel. And this Paul Logan guy would also call Shadversity an incel.
They're not marginalized. It is, I think I agree with Prime Kai. It is insulting to actually marginalized groups to try and pretend that this oddly defined group of people who do have some issues are themselves marginal. That's not true.
If it's untrue, again, I'm going to point out, why isn't an incel on this panel that they're discussing? If they're not marginalized, how come they're not here as an equal voice? Right?
It's just fucking ludicrous.
Okay, well, with that, thank you all for being here. And I would ask, the only thing I ask, try to attack each other's points rather than each other, but otherwise, get as spicy or crazy as you like. And again,
do you really believe that people, Sharpwick, do you really believe that someone is getting rejected once and becoming an incel?
Good. I'm glad he asked that. Even though this guy's a misanderstood anyway, because he believes in patriarchy, he pointed out this woman's bullshit. Let's hear.
Who is that to me, or?
No. That was Wick's Stabby Pimp, I think is the Discord name. So we'll go with that.
Say that again.
Do you really believe that someone is getting rejected once and becoming an incel? Like, where are you getting that from?
I don't think it's every single time, but I do believe that they are facing the same amounts of rejection as we are, but they're giving up sooner.
No, this is horseshit. This is horseshit. Because it's not just the amount, it's also the level of rejection, right? If a guy is just balked off slightly, but if some of these incels, they come in and the women are just treat them like dirt. You only need 2 or 3 experiences like that where you say, no, that's not worth going through. That's damaging to my self-esteem. So that's what these guys are leaving out.
Okay.
And I'm getting a lot of it from experiences.
And also she's full of shit because she doesn't know that what she's saying is true. She doesn't know that. She's just saying that to demonize these men. Hey, these guys aren't marginalized, but we'll lie about them and demonize them.
I'm in a veteran community, and like as one of the veterans, the insanity is that there's this sense of entitlement for what they're owed. it's not just with sex either. I want to be very clear about that. But that sense of entitlement means they're giving up a lot earlier, way faster than other people are.
Really, what's their sense of entitlement? Right? They believe they're owed intimacy. Well, that they're like that because people feed them horse shit. Like these two women here, you think they're not saying, oh, of course women love men for themselves? If they were honest and said, yeah, we love you for your status, they probably wouldn't feel so entitled. They're fed lies to start with. But even then, these guys are human beings, and they said, I deserve intimacy, just like you do. When these women want intimacy with a man, they can get one. And they can get it. And these guys want the same thing. If it's entitlement, it's an understandable entitlement.
I just think that's insane. The idea that, you know, like, I think the reason people go down the path of becoming an incel is not because they get rejected once or a couple of times. There is this really deep-rooted feeling that they aren't good enough, and there's this consistent, persistent rejection that constantly they're engaged with that leads them towards these communities. So I just don't understand where you're getting it, that they were getting rejected one, maybe a couple of times, and boom, they're an incel. I think it's a lot more of a detailed process than that.
Well, she's lying. What can I say, pal? I mean, these people come at these misandrists as if they're arguing in some kind of good faith.
So let me ask you.
A process that starts at a really young age too. I feel like we're, I feel like too.
That's right, pal. Teenage boys have no status, so they get rejected right off the bat. That's true.
Address Kevin's point really quick. I really want to try to understand which group we're talking about, because if you say there's two separate groups that we both call both of them incels, I don't want to argue about definitions the entire conversation.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Kind of just like level the playing field. And
I mean,
when they say two groups, what they're really saying is, we want to appear empathetic, and there's ones that we like, but here's the bad guys. And of course, any guy will end up being the bad guy. This is what you have to understand from these cretins.
I mean, people that want to murder people are bad. I mean, can we just get the basic shit out of the way? Obviously, yes. If someone wants to murder someone, that's bad. We can be understanding of why they got there, but that's a line we don't want to cross. So I think it's pretty easy for us all to agree that, right?
Why are you bringing up murder? Just stick with what you were saying. That this woman, what she had to say was horseshit. Thank you.
And I want to say,
terrorists.
Can I just suggest that we just focus exclusively on incels who would be part of incel groups? They're part of incel Reddits. They usually will self-identify as incels, and so in that way, they're typically part of that actual incel group. They're typically part of this misogynistic Reddit. And
see, she said the word misogynist. Okay, so this erudite, I could actually stop it right here. This not-so woman is a misandrist. She used an N-word for men, misogynist, right? And of course, she's focusing on these guys because she doesn't want to look at men in general, because then she'd be discussing men's issues. And she would realize, or this panel might come to realize, that, you know, what they are talking about is men in general and not this particular one group, right?
No, not Reddit anymore, but that group, right? I think
this is what I mean, is that it's difficult to disambiguate the, you know, terrorist element from that, because like
he's calling these guys terrorist. There's never been a terrorist act from incels, but there has been from feminists, right? So know it, guys.
The support, you do see some pretty widespread support, even if it's just memes for people like Elliot Rodger,
what
for
percentage?
Instance.
Okay, you can meme about things that
No, I think she's going to mute this guy trying to correct him.
doesn't matter, right? The line is, are you actually considering, or are you going to go and kill people? That's the fucking differentiation you make. You can make whatever fucking jokes you want. What are you talking about? Who cares if they're making fucking jokes?
No, hang on. But I'm not. But I'm not talking about them being. We're not talking here. Should inceldom be illegal? It's should be.
Okay, so this guy up here was putting some fight against these misandrists, even though he's misandrist to a certain degree. She muted him, right? So it shows you where this woman's at.
We have sympathy for them. Are they a marginalized group? And therefore, what they joke about actually does matter. Because if you're asking me whether I should feel empathy for a person, well, it depends on how they behave, I guess. Like, yeah, I think that does matter. I think that should be factored in.
So typically when you look at research on this, so I came armed with lots of research. When you look at things like when you studied a group of incels.io, so it is a very strongly self-identified, there's a lot of misogynistic language. This group specifically has been studied by multiple.
Misogynistic language. There you go. In other words, these women or these men probably said something nasty about women. They didn't know their place. They didn't know their place, right? Okay, that's all we need to know from this person. I hope no one who watches this woman's channel thinks she's on men's side. Now, we're not going to go through this whole video. That would drive me insane. We'll go to the what to do about incels, what to do about them. I thought how to help them. I thought this was about empathy and caring about these guys. Shouldn't it be how to help incels? No, it's what to do about these guys. When we listen to this, I think you guys are going to find that no answers come up. There's no Pacifics are going to come up.
Okay, can I ask you directly, Erudite, what is one thing that you would change, right? Like at how society marginalizes, or let's even not use this word, but disadvantages this group that you think that we can change right now? Is there anything, is there any low-hanging fruit, so to speak, that
right now that can change?
Yeah, that we can just knock out?
No, I don't think there's any like one thing that I could like change. Like there's
Thank you for admitting that, because there is one thing she could change. Women could actually start treating men like human beings. They could start respecting men. They don't have to be intimate with them, believe it or not, but they could quit gaslighting them. They could start respecting them as people. They should show them some consideration. They could do that. She's not going to do that as a woman. This scumbag's not going to do it for sure. And the average woman isn't going to. They're not going to change their ways. And that's why there's nothing they can be doing. Right?
There's things I could point to and be like, if it changed right now, we'd probably see a massive improvement. But these changes are sticky and hard, and it's a very large boat that's slow to move. So,
yeah, there are things that could change. She doesn't mention them. Why doesn't she mention them? Because it's obvious what I said. She's not going to say that, so she'd have to make something up. And since she doesn't have the brain power to make something up, that wouldn't be bullshit. She doesn't say anything. And it's going to be like that, though, this whole segment.
Fair enough. Okay, Steph.
I have one for in the United States. I'm not sure about anywhere else, but I saw a study right next to another study, and one time an article that did both of them. I'll try to find the link, where it said that our views on promiscuity, like Americans are saying that promiscuity is messing things up. Like there's somebody even in the chat right now, in Wix chat.
What does this have to do with incels? See, this woman is derailing the conversation. Incels can't get laid. They can't get women's attention. So what is that? They can't be promiscuous, right?
Today that was saying that going away from these conservative ideas, like men not having sex equals bad, but going away from conservative ideas for sex was bad. And the conservative idea for sex is don't have it. We need to get rid of the puritanical ideas that sex makes you a bad person, that promiscuity is ruining anything.
This is nonsense. Okay, so does this woman believe in the male gaze? Right? I expect she does. If these men start hitting on women, these women spit on them and call them incels. Is she going to do anything about that? She believes in that puritanical business, doesn't she? Right? So she's using this as an opportunity to say women should be promiscuous, right?
Promiscuity is dangerous to us individually if we're not safe,
I'm going to get beyond this, because she goes a long way, and these guys actually talk. They get into the derailing, right? Promiscuity has nothing to do with incels or what to do about incels, right? Okay, let's see if we can get beyond the long-winded discussion of polyamory. Has nothing to do with the discussion at all, really.
Can tell.
Okay, listen. I'm just listen. I'm just right. Move us on. Take control.
I'm doing my part to help the incels. I'm having sex with more men. I can't fit anymore. What are you doing, Chud Logic? Nothing.
So she's being promiscuous. Like I said, this was an argument for her to sleep with around, right? She's sleeping with high status men. She's going to ignore these low status men, right? So the only way this woman's doing any help if she sleeps with low status men. She's not going to do that, right? So she's full of shit.
I will
But
refrain.
if you're having sex with men who are already having sex, then you're not really helping the incels. It would actually just
Thank you. Thank you for calling out the obvious.
be more to their point of hypergamy.
I'm just
So-
no. Look, Chud is also
making sure
having
more
sex
men
with
are
lots
having
of
sex.
men. Okay. So,
I'm going to go suck off an Indian autistic guy
Why
tomorrow.
aren't you having sex? My question is this: why aren't you having more sex with men, Chud Logic? Why aren't you doing your part?
Because I'm not sexually attracted to men.
And you're not
Damn.
a woman.
All right, so
Most incels
That's
are
gonna be an
women.
excuse.
So-
I want
Femboys
I want
may
to-
be
I was-
of age,
I want to
obviously.
say that like it's I want to be clear that like I understand this group. I think I understand them very well. When I was younger, I had a lot of the same thoughts. I didn't think we should like institutionalize.
See, this is what I'm talking about. These guys are just as much incels as the so-called incels, right? He went to the same experiences. So if he's not having them, what's happened? He gained enough status to bribe a woman into his life. That's it.
Like vaginas or anything like that, but like I have the same thoughts. But like it was before that again, incels became like that concept became a part of the zeitgeist in general. But like I had a lot. If you had talked to me and really dug into me, I had a lot of the same thoughts. And
So thank you. So in other words, men are disrespected by women. That's true. That's what it is. That's what causes the mental illness, right?
so I feel a lot of compassion.
Well, how did you get over it?
But these guys, they can't be part of a marginalized group. Even though they're supposedly a separate group from you, right? And you guys are lambasting them, and you're not including them in this panel to have this discussion.
Pussy. It solved it. Pussy.
So
Actually.
you hit a good
can I-
puberty, or
so-
like did you engage with good like role models and people who gave you good advice, or
No,
like
it's pussy. No, it's pussy. Pussy solved it.
that's a really okay. So the incels do just need to fuck then, and you have no.
I didn't make the prescription.
Yeah, good one, pal. Glad for calling this out. I mean, that's what incel is about. Involuntary celibate, right?
For everyone, right?
Can I bring some? Can I bring a quick levity?
I'm just
I
gonna
swear,
mute
quick
myself.
levity.
Yeah, this woman wants to derail again. This segment, What to Do About Incels, is almost over. We've heard we have no sources to the problem. Sorry, I'm using the wrong word. Solutions. No solutions to the problems. None of these panelists have given any solutions to these problems, have they?
If I can, just quick levity. Wick, I think you need to get that dating app started called Wet Wicks, and I think that Prime needs to.
What should we do if we have a friend who is in that position? How should we guide them? I guess I don't know if that's rambling.
Incels don't have friends. You're not friends with them.
Society.
That's a good point. By the way, everyone, men don't like other men. That's the other part of this, right? If men liked one another and hung around each other and liked each other's company, then it wouldn't hurt them so much if women deselected them. So this is the other thing, right? That never gets mentioned.
He has. I would tell an incel. I've told an incel this before. And he was a veteran, so I probably could get away with it. I don't know.
He was a veteran. Wow. So this incel, he was able to get employment, right? And he fought for his country, and yet he's not good enough for people to hang with. I hope all you Army vets are listening.
If this will work for everyone, but I would tell them, what the fuck does society know if they're trying to make you feel like this? Because society is saying that having no sex is bad and you're a loser, but they're also saying that being promiscuous is evil and that you're a bad person if you do.
Okay, shut up. This woman has nothing to say. I'm not going the last, few minutes. These people have no solutions to the problem because they can't admit what's going on. They have no empathy or sympathy for these men. They hate other men. They've demonstrated it so. And they're not willing to admit that women don't like men. And that's the source of the problem. It's a complex issue, right? Like I said, it's only complex if you don't want to deal with the simple truth. And these losers, is what they are, don't want to deal with certain simple truth. And I'm going to give you another simple truth. I'm going to reiterate what I've said several times now. All you losers, all you incel losers, you're an incel as soon as you speak up for yourself. So all men are incels. Okay? I'm going to end it there.